What, in your experience, are the major reasons septic systems fail in Maine, and what can municipalities, developers, and homeowners do to reduce those risks?
I would go back to my earlier statement, lack of maintenance. If the solids in the tank build up to a sufficiently high degree, the new stuff coming in doesn't have a chance to settle out the heavy material, which overflows into the field where it's not supposed to be. Once it gets out there and plugs up the field, the liquid portion only has one way to go. Usually not the direction most homeowners want to see. For larger commercial systems, particularly restaurants, grease is the issue. I've been at this since '84 and I have not investigated a restaurant or eating place related malfunction that was not caused by grease.
And that's even with the new grease trap regulations? Is that still happening?
Yes, that's correct. Particularly internal fixtures, they don't have enough detention time or capacity to float out the grease. And I read a paper, 5 or 6 years ago from the National Small Flows Clearinghouse in Virginia, where they actually did an investigation on that phenomenon. Long story short is they found that with the advent of near sanitizing temperature commercial dishwashers and the use of detergent rather than soap, the fats and the oils were staying in solution much longer. And they also discovered that they weren't coagulating until the temperature dropped from approximately 180 to 53 degrees Fahrenheit. And those little under-sink units just cannot do that. It's physically impossible. There are some larger internal ones that are good, but not those little canister type. And the external grease interceptors, which to you and me from the outside would look like a septic tank, but it's different baffling. We purposely require fairly large grease interceptors compared to the flow for the very purpose of slowing it down, giving it time to settle and cool off.
So with the use of those grease interceptors then, is that helping to reduce the problem?
It helps, but they, like a septic tank, need to be maintained, and a failure to do so is going to cause that grease to end up in the field, again, last place you want it. And particularly with grease, when that happens, the systems are gone because there's nothing you can put out there to dissolve the grease that's legal to introduce to the groundwater.
So from what you're saying, that most of your failures are on the maintenance side. They're pretty much, you feel good about the current certification system for your designers.
Yeah.
And you're not having too many problems with well-designed systems.
That's correct. I mean, there's always going to be a small number of them that are going to be either improperly designed or improperly installed, which is clearly going to compromise its integrity.
And those usually fail fairly briskly.
Yes.
Not always, but typically, within
It's
a
not
year
going
or
to
so.
surprise you, in other words. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I really do think over the last 20 years we've made a concerted effort to educate designers, inspectors, and installers. And I think the fact that we're not being called 5 or 6 times a day to come out and look at a blown-out system speaks for itself.
Okay. What is the typical lifespan of a properly designed septic system in Maine? And do larger fields tend to have longer or shorter design lives than typical fields?
Well, we have found that an average lifespan for a single-family residences system is about 20 to 22 years. Of course, that being an average, there are some that are much less and some that are much greater. Use is certainly a factor. If you have a single-family home with 4 teenagers, the system's being hit a lot harder than a single-family home that's occupied by an elderly couple. So there's that whole gamut of how hard are you hitting that system that's going to affect it. With respect to the larger systems, they seem to have a somewhat lengthier lifespan, and I personally suspect it's because being a big system, there's always going to be somebody, whether it's a maintenance person for a school or some sort of an engineer for an industrial use, or perhaps a homeowners association, actively watching over it and taking care of it. It makes a big difference.
Are there any other techniques that system managers can use to prolong the lifespan and thus the return of investment on their systems, besides the obvious, which is the need to educate the users about maintenance and not dumping poisons down the drain?
Well, I think they could explore the use of technology. We were talking earlier about advanced treatment units. Those will certainly help extend the lifespan of the system, simply because you're putting virtually no strain on it. Very low nutrients, a lot of oxygen, and what you really end up needing to deal with is the hydraulic carrying capacity of the soil. I got to back up. We don't generally try to recommend things by name, but this particular thing I'm going to mention in a moment has no competitors, so I feel fairly safe in doing so. There's a device that's from Germany called the Busse, B-U-S-S-E. It consists of 2 cabinets, roughly the size of small refrigerators, uses about as much energy as a 100-watt light bulb, and it provides what we call tertiary treatment. It is to the advanced treatment units as the advanced treatment units are to a passive septic tank, and it utilizes reverse osmosis to filter some very small particles down to microbe size out of the waste stream, and also puts out a very small volume compared to the volume it treats. And the gentleman who's president of the company, Ralph Busse, has a video that he shows everybody where he actually opens up a spigot on the side of it and fills a glass and takes a drink.
Because that's the quality of the food.
Exactly. Now, these devices are a bit pricey, but they are extraordinarily efficient. So the extra you might spend on it up front would be compensated for in the long run, I believe.
Yeah, and I think, that, based on both water and wastewater experience, having competent management of any semi-centralized system is a big deal. It's not difficult, but it does require attention.
Isn't that interesting that they call them decentralized systems, but in
Mm-hmm.
fact they kind of need to be centralized to be done well?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you both, gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Oh, it was fun.
Much more
Get out of
fun
the
than many
office.
things we do.